Tonight I'm joined by our very good friend Gordon Hill, who's going to be talking about his former Manchester United manager Tommy Docherty. Gordon, we've had a lot of bad news recently. Sadly, the Doc passing away on New Year's Eve. Tell me, what were your first memories of the Doc?
Well, I was playing at Warsaw and I came back on the bus and then I was getting ready to play a midweek game for Millwall in the FA Cup. And then I got pulled off halfway through it and said that Manchester United have put a bid in for you and the club have accepted it. So Gordon Jago said, meet me tomorrow morning, which was a Wednesday morning. Meet me tomorrow morning. You're going up to Manchester to talk to him. So next morning at Euston, I was there with my X-rays underneath my arms and he brought my boots with me. He brought my boots to me at the station. So I got on the train and I'd only been to Manchester to play games really more than anything else. And when I thought it, because I'd heard that Tottenham had put a bid in, but Tottenham were too late. Terry Neal put a bid in, which was 125 grand, which had been good money for Millwall. But I went up and I met TD. In fact, I couldn't be with a more impressive unit. I walked in, Gordon Clayton picked me up at the station, took me to the ground. I went through the doors, John, and sitting there in the manager's office was Sir Matt, Tommy Doc, Frank Blunstone, Louis Edwards, Tommy Cavana, and Jimmy Murphy. So I was quite surprised when they said that they'd been tracking me and, they made a decision. But that's the first time. And then when I said to him about, obviously, my wages, when I forgot about it, I came back into the room 5 minutes later and I just said, excuse me, I forgot to ask you one question. How much are you going to get? And I think that was my introduction to Tommy Docherty when he turned around and said, don't worry, son, we'll look after you. So I trusted him there. And I'm not saying that every player trusted Tommy Doc or TD or the Doc. No, there was players from prior, from the '68 squad, fabulous players in their time and done everything else, and they didn't speak too highly of him. But that wasn't, that was just change of management. They'd had an absolute fantastic, Sir Matt Busby before there and controlling it, and then another manager comes in and then decides that he wants to change things. So, one man's meat is another person's poison. But, it to me, I'd done it. I signed. I went to the Man City game, and that was the game that Colin Bell, God rest his soul, because I just heard the sad news. So commiserations and condolences to his family as well. I got to know him, but as I said, I went there to the game, and that started my United career.
We've had a few sad months, losing many heroes recently, but what are your memories of Tommy Docherty, the character? We all know he was a one-off and you had 2 great seasons playing for the Doc.
Oh, on the football side of it, the Doc was a football man, knew what he wanted it from his players, but he also wanted to play the football that he felt that the players that he had gathered together could play. And it was swashbuckling, 100 mile an hour. But people don't realise that we were very controlled. We would work during the week with Tommy Cavana, and Tommy Cavana and TD used to get together, and we would literally, do things. But you do things in a training session that somebody would have as an individual session. We did it as a group, so we knew what we were doing. And people have got to remember that we didn't have a lot of substitutes. We only had one substitute, so you had to get things right in the first place. And he was that type of a manager that could pat you on the back and also, kick you up the backside when you needed it. I always liked him. He was humorous, funny, always ready to crack a joke. But when it came to the game, very serious, very serious. But it proved it. He was at Chelsea, he was at Villa and done well. He had the Scotland team, He's done well, so his past has been, well documented, and I was very fortunate enough to get to him where he wanted me as that type of a player, and I was. So I didn't turn around and say, "Oh, I can't play like that." I loved the way he wanted to play. His motto was, "They score three, we score four. They score two, we score three." Which was going forward. And yeah, we could go forward, but people got to remember, John, we had some fantastic defenders: Martin Buckham, Brian Greenoff, Stuart Houston, young Jimmy Nichol, young Arthur Orbiston. All these players came in and settled into the side, and your midfield was loaded with fantastic players. You had Sammy McElroy, you had Lou Macari, you had Jerry Daly before Jerry moved on, and you had me and Stevie on the left and right, and you had either Pancho, and then we got Jimmy Greenoff, which really made it. So, Dave McCreary was what they called the super sub then, but David still contributed as much to it. If somebody was tired, David would come on and still do a job, and he could play in several positions, which was really good. And we would give young players a chance. But, the doc was never afraid to taking a young player on a trip, or a couple of young players, to see what they could do. And that's today's game as well, except that the squads are bigger. But the doc to me was football through and through. If he lost, very, very, very disappointed. But he would never, he wouldn't rant and rave to you. He knew what we did. He knew the way we played. He knew when we lost. He knew when we were up and we were bubbling. And Tommy Cavana, who needs a lot of praise as well to this, also backed it up. And basically, the doc was into everything. I can remember one scenario: we were playing on a Friday morning at the ground, getting ready for a game on a Saturday. The doc was playing in the five-a-side. Ball played up to me, my back to the goal. All of a sudden, a forearm smash across the back of my neck. I was out. The doc had come in from behind and literally laid me out. And Cavana, all you could hear was TC turn around and say, "Hey, he said, hey, TD, we've got a game tomorrow. You've nearly killed him." But it was that part of that player was still in that managerial side of it, if you see what I mean. So, after that, it was like, and even the boys would say, "It's a bit hard. Did you see that?" And I said, you just go, "Yeah." I said, "Oh, I hate to have been playing when he was playing. He'd have taken your legs off." And yet I heard stories that he would have as a player. So he was with a hard man. He was with a manager that wanted football. He'd got it delivered at Chelsea, Aston Villa, and the Scotland national team. He upset people on the way, but the doc got the nickname the likeable rogue. 1 minute he was a devil, next minute he was as nice as pie. So he'd come out with some humorous jokes. I know Jim Gregory down at QPR once said to him, he said, "Well, Doc," he says, "I think I'm going to call it a day, sacking the doc." And the doc turns and said to him, "Why, Mr. Gregory?" He says, "I think you're doing a great job." So that was the type of humour that you got, which could break up a conversation that was serious. It could light-hearted it. And I think that was him. He was just, I've known him ever since. I think the world of him as a person. I think he stuck by his guns, but he was a football person and a manager. He was in the same class as Samat, Shankly, Reevy. You want to put the greats up there, then you put Tommy Docherty along with them.
For us United fans who remember that era, even though we had a relegation before you got there and a promotion, we fondly remember it as an iconic era. And we all fondly remember having you and Stevie Coppell on the wings. When did you know you were joining a special team?
In the second division, believe it or not. I was against them at Old Trafford for Millwall, and us being known as the Lions, we thought it was the opposite. We thought we were the Christians in the Lions' Den at Old Trafford. We got beat 4-0, and it was like 50,000 people, 55,000 people. Not, you know, and it was the first. We'd come from 8,000-9,000 people, so it was oh my gosh, you know. And I think that really done it. That was a stage that I realised that I wanted to. That's the stage that I wanted to play at. That's the football that I wanted to play at. I could see they appreciated it. They had the likes of Best. They had the likes of Law. They had people, younger players like Brian Kidd, you know. And then I got to play with Alex Stepney, the great goalkeeper, you know, that had played with all these. I mean, the club is steeped in tradition of quality, the best in the world players, and you know, I joined them. I joined the squad, and you know, I became part of them, and I couldn't ask for no more than the players that I played with in that 4 years. I couldn't have asked for any better players because we were put together. Lou Macari from Celtic, Stuart Pearson from Hull, you know, myself and Stevie from Tranmere and Millwall. So we were players that once you've done it, we knew of United, and the way they came back was they stormed the second division and they won it comfortably. And I remember playing at the Coblow Lane at the down the Old Kent Road, and I wanted to like, you know, okay, you are the best team in this league, no doubt. You don't need to be here, but I wanted to play against the best that was there, and obviously I got a chance when I went to United to play against the best, but I wasn't arrogant. I had to be confident because the game would have been taken away from me if you're not confident. Footballers are very, very easily detect what your feelings are, and they can sum you up in a heartbeat. And I just knew that once they stormed the second, and you'd watch for their results, 3-0, 4-0, you know, take 10,000 people to Oxford and really overrun it. You know, I think everybody in the second division said, please don't give Manchester United promotion. Someone said, why is that? He says, because they go to away clubs and they take 10,000 people and that keeps them going for another season. So that's the beauty of it. The fans are fantastic. Don't get me wrong. The fans were fantastic at Millwall. You know, they were a mini version of Man United, but I still wanted to play. And when I got the chance to play after that Wednesday, that, you know, Colin Bell, you know, God rest his soul, he got injured. I stayed that 3 or 4 days, and it's funny, John, but people used to say about, the City United rivalry. I had as many good friends at Manchester City as I did at Man United. Joe Corrigan is a good friend. Peter Barnes is a good friend. Gary Owen's a good friend. So you meet them, and you know, you declare war when you step over the line on a Saturday. But other than that, yeah, you'd pat each other on the back. Yeah, so memories were great, but the Doc led that team, led it back in. So, you know, those 3 or 4 years that I had, and those 4 or 5 years that he had, I think really put United back on the map again in terms of trophies. You know, they'd gone from 68, gone up, got relegated, and then the Doc had the not the pleasure, but he had to let players go that were very, very favourable and very, very, you know, legends at United. But as we see, you have to do that to be able to make progress in the game. And it's never hard to tell somebody like Willie Morgan that you're not wanted. You know, fabulous winger. And all United knew it. But I think he knew then what United wanted in terms of looking at the way that he wanted to play, to keep that tradition of attacking football. And hopefully we can get back to that with traditional wingers. And I'm not a favourite of wing backs, you know. So memories like that come back, and very thin. The next one was the Gillette Advert, there where me and Stevie were on the gantry at Old Trafford with the doc doing the Gillette Advert. Gillette gives your face the old 1-2, where he would like put his fist out and touch your chin and then touch the other player's chin. So me and Stevie, it's freezing it was, and the doc kept on hitting me, like chinning me. So I moved. I let Stevie go next to him, and he did it again and again until I said, boss, I said, you do that one more time. I said, I'm going to wallop you. But he was doing it to get people going, to have a laugh. That's the type of person. And me and Stevie couldn't shave to save our lives. I mean, we had bum fluff. And we basically just, you laugh at those. Those are the moments that you think back and, going and being part of that fun, going and training, being part of the fun at the Cliff, going to Wembley and being part of that team. It was a great relationship. You didn't have to be the best of friends, but you did when you played and you trained.
Tell me about the wit of Tommy Docherty. What did he say when he famously took you off towards the end of that losing FA Cup final against Southampton in '76?
Oh, right. That was quite funny. That was the first time they'd used the card system where they put your number up and, you came off. And thank God it's not today because they'd run out of numbers. But I think it was 1 to 11. Well, I was playing. I had a terrible game. I didn't like the game. I knew that, and I just wasn't myself. But anyway, we were on, and the card goes up, number 11, about 7-9 minutes to go. So the card comes up, number 11. I'm on the far side of Wembley, and I turn, and all of a sudden I went, oh no! And the horriblest thing is going from one side of Wembley to the bench. So I made my way over there, and as I'm just about to sit down, he looked at me and said, get your tracksuit, you put it on, and you can sit down. And I went, and I was upset, and I went, what, me? And he turned around and he said, no, the whole, excuse my French, but he said the whole fucking team. That's what we were playing like that day, and it broke a smile, it broke the atmosphere, it broke the tension. And I sat down and I realized, and I went, yeah, absolutely. So he had ways of doing that, but then he had ways of getting you to perform again, because on the Tuesday, we had to play our last game against Man City, and I scored. So one game, it was like, you got to forget your last game, because what people will say is you're only as good as your last match. I wanted to get rid of that, and so yeah, we won that game. I think it was 2-0, I think. But anyway, that put that to bed, and we just got, we knew what we had to do the following year.
Having lost that FA Cup final against Southampton, what do you think it meant to the Doc to go back to the final the following year and to beat Liverpool?
I think it was everything for everybody, because I'll be perfectly honest with you, John. Man United are the best club. United were the best club, are the best club in my eyes. But then Liverpool was the best team, without a shadow of a doubt. And I always remember when we go back, we wanted to go back, we wanted to play, we beat Leeds in the semi. We went back, and even when we won the trophy, and it was like, oh my gosh, it's like winning the World Cup to us. We got it, we won it, we prayed in it. I can always remember some of the players talking to Liverpool, because Liverpool were going 3 days later to play, I think, Mönchengladbach in the cup, in the final, and we wished them the very best of luck. Bring the cup back to England. So it was a case of domestic FA Cup, the most prestigious domestic trophy. We won that. But we wanted them to bring back the European Cup, which they did with Tommy Smith. So, it panned out. And of course, like the year before, we'd beaten Derby, who was going for 4 trophies as well. All they picked up was the league. So it was really, really I could really say a tight situation. It was a couple of seasons where we were up the top, but we were getting ready to go to the top. We weren't ready to take it, But if the situation had changed with, and TD had got his affairs right, we weren't afraid of any European side, none. We weren't afraid of any domestic side. We were playing a type of football that I thought, and that's only my opinion, I thought was fantastic, And I think we put the fright up certain people, European teams, because they knew that we weren't going to come over and just be a normal team.
When I've spoken to a lot of your teammates, obviously, big disappointment when Tommy Docherty lost his job over off the field activities. A lot of your teammates were convinced you were going to win or go close to winning the league the following season. Was that how you felt?
That's exactly the feeling. I mean, we knew it, and the funny thing is that Sammy McElroy and I, we grabbed a late holiday because we were obviously with the international. On international duty, we came back and the boss said, like, okay, fine, you guys have a week off. We'll see you in a week. And I said to Sammy, we met on the beach in Ibiza. We grabbed a holiday shelf, holiday. Poof, off we went, and they happened to bump into each other. And the doc and Sammy was lying there, and I was just walking down the beach, just getting some fresh air. And then all of a sudden, he's like, "Hey, Illy, you get a holiday as well?" I said, "Yeah, Sam." I said, "Hey, Mac, what's all this?" He went, "Illy, you won't believe this." He had a paper in front of him. He said, "United have sacked the doc." I went, "You're kidding me." I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, he's been having an affair with Mary Brown for 2 years." I went, "You're kidding? Come on." I said, "Laurie's wife?" Because you're absolutely gobsmacked. And I was literally gobsmacked. And Sammy McElroy said this: "United will not stand for that." And sure enough, we get back and it's like, oh my gosh, it's happened. And we knew that if it hadn't have happened, we'd have gone on to at least have got to the top. We knew what we wanted. We brought Jimmy Greenoff in to do that, and then we had the sights set on all the trophies again. And you win one trophy. I don't care if it's the Caribou Cup. It's a trophy. Players sometimes don't win any. You look at Alan Shearer. I don't know how many. I don't think he won the FA Cup. But I tell you what a player. So some can win and some can't. There was Liverpool were 10, 15. They were phenomenal. But we knew we had to beat them, and we knew we had to win the league. We were going back towards the cup. We got to the quarterfinal again, and we were beaten by West Brom. So it wasn't a case of we weren't good enough. It was a case of, okay, what's our next target, so to speak? We done the playing, and the doc set the targets, and Cavanagh. The team there set the targets. All we knew is we had to go and perform, and we were absolute. I mean, it's the same old story. The football show. I'm gutted. No, we were. I was very disappointed because I knew that something had stopped us from maybe achieving what we wanted to achieve, and then he got the sack, and I didn't speak to him. I didn't speak to him because I never saw him, which is sad, but I never saw him, and then he didn't lie to you. He just told you, shall we say, a little extended story, and you can believe it or you can't believe it. But I believe Sammy Mac. Sammy Mac was a Busby babe, and he said to me, the club won't allow it. He said in name, he said, Les Olive will not allow this. So, and next thing you know, bump. Your football world is turned upside down within a second. Where I would have spent my days there, I would never have moved. I was happy. I was settled up there. I was scoring goals. I just love scoring goals for United. I just love scoring and creating. When you get great players like Stuart Pearson and you get Lou Macari's and then you get Jimmy Greenoff, who was coming to the latter part of his career. And he's come in to join us. Even he felt honoured to be got by Man United. I don't know if players are now honoured to be at Man United or they're just bought by Man United. But I said to him for many years now, I'd have played for nothing because that's the way I was. That's the way a lot of players are. They don't, now I'm afraid it's changed. And the Doc and the other managers that have passed on now left a great tradition. And I just want it I just want to see it go on and on and on. And, I want us to be able to like enjoy the football again.
Fantastic memories, Gordon, and thank you ever so much for being so honest and giving us such fascinating insight. I just want to give you the final word. I know you can't be here for the funeral, sadly, but what are your final memories of Tommy Docherty, the man? He got to 92 and he spent his final days with Mary Brown, so 43 years later, it must have been true love.
It had to be true love, and I knew his previous wife. She was a lady. And I know Michael Dougherty. I played against Michael and the family. And there was, it's a sad loss. I mean, it's for them, it must be a sad loss. And for me, it's my mentor that I looked at, that I knew that he wanted all his players to play football and to play attacking football. And it saddens me that because of the coronavirus, I would have been there in a heartbeat, or I would be in a heartbeat at his funeral. I'd be at the front because, he meant a lot to it, because what he did, he introduced us to a type of football that everybody loved. And from down the years now, you either liked him or you didn't like him. But he will be sadly missed. And I've got all my condolences to Mary, to the family, to Agnes, to Michael, who was a friend. It's a sad loss, and I'm just as, shall we say, broken as anybody else about it. And I live 8,000 miles away, and I can't be there, which hurts me. But my best wishes and my condolences, and rest in peace, Tommy.